Was a pretty normal Friday night. Fom lived alone in a really small home in the suburbs, but worked an hour away in the city. Finally reaching the weekend, was ready to do absolutely nothing tonight and just watch YouTube game and maybe sleep. And I took a quick shower after getting home, then fired up the PlayStation and relaxed and gamed for a few hours. I even cracked open a few beers. The night was going pretty well, and I thought the only thing that could make it perfect was to get some pizza delivered. I ordered from a local pizza shop, just using their app to place the order with, then laid back on the cushion, watched YouTube on the TV while I waited. After 45 minutes, though I realized it had been a while since I'd placed the order and hadn't gotten any texts that they were on the way, I pulled my phone out and checked the app. It said there was a delay. I don't remember the exact message, but it was very generic, basically saying, "Sorry for the delay, your order will be on the way soon." It was no big deal. I was trying to stay up late anyway, although I felt my eyes getting heavy. Maybe I was more tired than I thought. Over the next 15 minutes with YouTube playing in the background, I slowly dozed off. Woke up suddenly to the doorbell ringing multiple times. I shot up from couch, thinking, oh, the pizza delivery. I had no idea how long I was passed out for or how long the delivery guy had been waiting on me. I hurried over to the door and opened it. I was still really groggy, and having a couple of beers earlier didn't help at all. There was a man "Sorry, I hope you weren't waiting long. How much do I owe you?" I said tiredly. Thagi looked a little confused. I clarified.
Says, "How much do I owe you?" It was as the words came out of my mouth that I realized this guy wasn't even holding any pizza boxes or anything at all. No uniform either. He had dark jeans and a gray hoodie flip over his head and hands stuffed into his pockets. The guy didn't answer for an awkward amount of time, like he was still thinking about what I said, but then he smiled and said not to worry, that pizzas were still on the way. He stopped talking after that, just looking at me as if that were a normal answer. Even me being a little drunk and real littered, I knew that was a weird response. So would he be here if it were still on the way? But I just said okay. And after another couple seconds of awkward silence, I closed the door, rubbed my face, and tried to regain my thoughts. Why was that interaction so strange? I was aware that I wasn't in their right mind, but unfortunately that madam think that maybe it wasn't as off Aussie was making it out to be. I put on a new video, then sat down and continued watching, only for me to fall asleep on Segan. This time I woke up to a clicking sound. I didn't know what it actually was. However, I knew I'd only drifted off for a few minutes because the video is still running. I sat up again and waited for a doorbell or a knock or something, but there wasn't. He still didn't know what that click sound was, but it was then that I finally remembered to check the app for any updates on the order. I opened my phone but didn't even get past the lock screen without being Emma placed the order at 11 o'clock and the bazaar shop was only open until 1 o'clock. Emma quickly checked the app, seeing the order was delayed for an hour before getting cancelled by the shop, but then who was just at my door. I got up from the couch and walked through the hallway to the front door, checking out the peephole and seeing no one out. There I reached down to unlock and open the door, only to see it was already unlocked. I must have forgotten to lock it when I answered the door just a few minutes ago because I was so out of it. I opened the door and looked out, but saw nothing, just an empty and quiet neighborhood. I was way too tired and tipsy to be dealing with whatever was happening without getting any answers. Closed the door and instantly stopped to dead in my tracks. That sound, the door clicking into the doorway, it was exactly what I heard. That woke me up. I felt my face go pale. In a split second I replayed the whole interaction with the guy, realizing my mistake and that he was just going along with being the pizza delivery guy after he'd already mentioned it. What intentions could he possibly have for him to lie about that? I looked back into the dark and quiet home. Everything in me told me to leave. I quietly walked back down the hallway, trying to get my phone from the couch. Just when I did, I heard something move in the other room. I panicked, grabbing my phone and running for the front door. I ran out of the house and down to the end of the block, then dialed 911. The cops arrived pretty quick, just a few minutes after I called. But it still wasn't fast enough. The guy was long gone. I gave them every single detail I could think of, exactly what he looked like, what he said, and everything. But so far, that's all we got, and unless something else happens, it's likely where it'll be left at. I think over that night all that I'm trying to figure out what really happened, but I don't know. It seems like The order being cancelled was just airily bad coincidence. The biggest question is why this random guy was outside my house ringing the doorbell at 4 o'clock a.m. to begin with. What was I initially intending? My guess is that he was scouting for empty houses or easy targets to either rob or worse. When I entered the door, he probably could tell I was drunk, tired, and not in the right headspace, so he figured he could take advantage of that. I'm even willing to bet he waited outside the door and listened for whether or not I locked it. Then he just waited a few minutes for me to go back to sleep. Had
I not woken up or relit the situation I was in that night could have gone much differently, and likely would not have ended well for me.